Hi there, Adita Lang from aditalang.com. And during times of anxiety and some uncertainty that comes in, there are areas of our health that can actually help us and help us be able to view things on more of an even keel and maybe respond better as opposed to react. So I want to kind of share those with you today. As a veteran health and wellness speaker, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've seen my own share of challenges and things that have worked for me and my clients, and hopefully these will work for you as well. So when I teach about health, I teach about the 4 pillars of health. And our first pillar is going to be food and nutrition. So here's the thing. Sugar and caffeine, what do? They wake us up, right? And so think of it, it's something that kind of picks us up. But in times of stress, and that stress can come from anything, right? In times of stress, it actually feeds our stress and keeps us in that angst for a longer period of time. And what we need to do is focus on foods that are going to diffuse us so that we can think rationally and we can really create plans without getting more upset. Because remember that when we're reacting as opposed to responding, we may not make the best decisions and we may not say the right things to the right people. So we want to be able to keep ourselves on a nice even keel. And how are we going to do that? Okay, so the first part of it, sugar. Sugar's not just sugar. I hate to say this, but it is sugar, flour, dairy, and alcohol. They all break down as a sugar. Think about it. The last time that you were truly stressed, what did you crave? Completely unconsciously. That cracker looked good, the bagel looked good, a cocktail after work looked amazing. These are the things that we crave because they feed our stress, and somehow we need to diffuse that. So at this point, my recommendation to you is you want 0 to 1 sugars per meal and snack, which means you've got to make choices. So if you're one who has breakfast in the morning and you have coffee, cream, sugar, toast, jam, and juice, ooh, that's all sugar, right? And unfortunately what happens there is that sugar, it breaks down and metabolizes really quickly, and you get to the office and someone says, hey, do you want a bagel? And you're going to go for it because you need to feel more amped because you're not feeling completely 100% centered. So what we got to do in theory, if that was your breakfast, my question to you is like, what are you willing to give up? And if you said to me, I'm not willing to give up the coffee, cream, and sugar, okay, fine. That means your breakfast needs to be protein and good quality fats. So what's that? Could be eggs, good quality fat, avocado. Of course, the olive oil you use to make the eggs, that could be a good choice. But we need foods higher protein, higher fat at this time of stress because that's what's going to keep us on an even keel so that we don't get anxious from within, not because of what's happening around us and in life right now and with work and our coworkers and all that stuff, but more of what's happening within our own bodies. So we want to try to keep ourselves even with that, okay? So that's our sugars. Now, the next piece of this is the caffeine. What do you do with caffeine? Well, I know a lot of people don't want to give up their coffee, but I do have a solution. So the solution is going to be, next time you pour yourself a cup of coffee, put in a teaspoon of coconut oil and mix it into the coffee. Here's why. You're not going to taste it, okay? It's going to look a little greasy, I can give you that. But the thing about it is that the fat from the coconut oil is going to make it so the caffeine doesn't surge into your body, so it's distributed slowly within your body as opposed to being thrown at you. Because when it's thrown at you, guess what? It's going to add to the stress of your body. Your insides are, when you have too much caffeine, you can feel your insides go like this. That's happening. And if you're upset about other things and you have to find solutions for some major problems, that's not going to help you. So you want the caffeine to be gradually given to you. And that's where the coconut oil kicks in. So that is my recommendation to you. Give it a try. Okay. But that would be one thing to do. Then the other thing is that remember that all your foods are basically your multivitamins. So right now is a time to add in more fruits and vegetables than ever. Because in times of stress, we're not really absorbing all the vitamins and minerals from our foods like we were when we weren't stressed. And here's my biggest example for you. So our intestines basically is where the nutrition is absorbed. So just hear me out first, okay? Think of your intestines as a pipe or a tube, and it's got all these little hairs that run within the inside of that pipe. And as food shoots through, these little hairs, they grab all the nutrition, absorb it into our body, and voila, we're healthy. Great. Okay, but when we're stressed out, that tube constricts inward. When it constricts inward, those little hairs can't move like they used to, so unfortunately they're not grabbing all that great nutrition as you're eating. So ideally then, in situations when you have more stress going on, that's when you got to eat better. And I know it's super hard because what we do is we crave the junk. We crave the cookies, we crave the chips because we think it's going to help us, but it doesn't really do that. It just actually adds to our stress. So these are times that you're going to actually have to force yourself to eat better than you ever have. And those moments that you break down and you're like, okay, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I'm going to eat that cookie. Eat the cookie with a good quality protein or fat, so at least the sugar doesn't get rushed into your system. It gets distributed slowly. Okay? So that was our first pillar. Now, our second pillar, exercise and movement. You've got to move your body. I realize that a lot of us right now are working out of our house. So what does that mean? Smartphones are phenomenal. Use your smartphone and set it up that every hour and a half or 2 hours, you get a little ding. And what does that ding mean? That ding means move around for 5 to 10 minutes. And that could be turn on your favorite music and just dance like a crazy person. No one except for your family should be looking. Or that ding might mean like go run the stairs or go take a walk around the block if it's a beautiful day. Do whatever you need to do. Now, here's what's going to happen. And this kind of melts into our other pillar, but I'm going to melt it in there now. When you take yourself away from your desk, away from the computer, and you focus, like really focus on something totally different. So you focus on walking around the block. And maybe while you're walking around the block, you still think about all the stuff that's going on, but you do notice there's one bird over there and there's a leaf over there, and you notice these little things. That actually creates a mental mind reset. And that reset then allows you to get back to your desk and actually go, oh, you know what? I've got a good solution to that. I never thought I could do this. Wow, I can change that. So these little things actually help us. By jumping around and dancing as a crazy person, you break out into a little bit of a sweat and you get your endorphins kicked in. Endorphins are like the super drug. Endorphins are that happy drug inside your body that melts away the stress. And we need those endorphins, especially now. So if you can do that for yourself, it's actually such a great thing. And again, at the beginning, you may have to force yourself to do this. I get it, okay? We have a lot going on. It's incredibly stressful. And to listen to me tell you to turn on your favorite music and dance may be a bit much. But if you force yourself to do it, I promise you that after the third or fourth time, you're going to be like, wow, okay, that made a big difference, even though I only did it for 5 minutes. Okay? So we need to incorporate that movement. In addition, though, we need to incorporate exercise into our day-to-day. But here's the thing, and only you can answer this question. If you are incredibly stressed out, then going to hit a punching bag isn't necessarily going to be helpful. It's going to add more stress to you. So I have 2 things that I work with clients. We either work out or we work in. Working in means that maybe instead of going and hitting a punching bag like you think you really need to, you actually do something more like yoga or Pilates or some kind of a stretch, really like a high intensity movement stretch type class. Those things will actually allow you to bring more oxygen into your body. The more oxygen that flows in, the more the muscles can start to go, ah. And when they go, ah, right, we have more oxygen that circulates throughout our entire body, which then does what? It makes us a little bit mentally clearer. And then we can resolve things a little bit easier. Things may not feel as they are so terrible, even though they are. Okay, so these are the things that we want to do. So exercise and movement is very important. Do you have to dedicate 60 minutes to just working out? No, you can throw in these little 10-minute bouts, and by the end of the day, you got whatever you got. Ideally, we want 150 to 300 minutes of activity, and they define activity as anything that increases your heart rate and makes you break out into a sweat. So that's when your endorphins kick in, okay? So we want to make sure that we incorporate that as well. Now, number 3, okay? Number 3 is going to be sleep and relaxation. And I know that when we are incredibly stressed out, sleep has a hard time. I understand that, completely recognize that. But here's the thing. We both physically and mentally recover during sleep. So there's a couple of things I'd like to share with you. One is all of your electronic devices. There's a setting in the display that says night shift or night shade. I want you to set that so it automatically turns on. So my phone and computer and everything gets a little bit of a yellow coloring to it at 5 o'clock. And it lasts that way until 7 o'clock the next morning. Because here's the thing, there's something in our devices called a blue light, and the blue light stimulates us to be awake. But that stimulating us to be awake, what else does it do? It inks up more of the stress that's going on in our day-to-day. So if we can remove that, right, it'll be a lot better for us, especially at night. Now, I know some of you are working 24/7. I recognize that, and you've got a lot to resolve. And you're very, very unsure of what tomorrow brings for you, okay? But working 24/7 doesn't mean that you have to have these devices angsting you on. So if we can start, it's like a checklist. If we can start removing some of these things that'll cause more stress in our day, it's going to help us out in the long run. So that would be my first thing for you to do. Second off, your bedroom should be pitch dark. So any type of little tiny LED light should be covered up. I use a black tape or a little hole puncher cardboard that I tape on there. Any kind of light coming in from the windows, I fix that up also with tape or paper or something, because the darker your room is, the easier it's going to stay. It's going to be for you to stay asleep. In slumber, we have these things called sleep cycles, and in a perfect world, we would have 6 to 7 sleep cycles, and they would be about 60 to 75 minutes each, okay? But during times of uncertainty and anxiety and all this other stuff that we're dealing with, we may not be getting those all in. But if we can start making all of the conditions of our room that much better, it's going to enable us to have a few more minutes of that deep sleep, which will actually help us in our day. So that deep sleep, and here's the thing about deep sleep, you could be in a deep sleep in one of those sleep cycles, and let's say you're 10 minutes in, but you roll over and one of those teeny tiny LED lights beams you in the eye. You don't fully wake up, but basically you disrupt the sleep cycle, and you can't go back into an existing sleep cycle. You have to end that one and start a new one, okay? And that causes disrupted sleep. So think about that a little bit as you're trying to set your room up for this. Now, a couple of other things. Your bedroom is for sleeping, and maybe a couple of other things, but primarily sleeping, but no working. So all the papers, the stacks of papers, your computer, if you can get that out of your room, that would be much better. If it has to stay in your room, cover it up at night. Even if you put a sheet over it, try to make your room your serenity space, the space that you know you can start to let go. Because if we're sitting there trying to go to bed, staring at our computer and the stack of files that need to be taken care of yesterday, that's not going to allow us to rest. So we want to really make sure that we kind of move that out of our vision at least, okay? The next thing is to have a journal next to your bed. And so when you start thinking about, oh, I forgot, I need to call so-and-so, and they need this paper, and I need to do this file, you just start writing them down on the notebook and put it to the side. Because then, remember, if you are thinking like, I forgot to call so-and-so, you want to keep it in your mind so that when you wake up, you don't forget that. If you can just write it down and let it be and then look at it the next morning, it's less things going on in our head. And that, again, we're trying to bring ourselves back to serenity. The next thing, and I kind of brought this up when I was talking about exercise, is really trying to find a way, I don't want to say meditating because that word doesn't really work for everybody, maybe being a little more mindful, or maybe just creating a mental reset. And if you can create 2 or 3 mental resets throughout the day, that's even better. And so the way that you create a mental reset, and it doesn't have to be a long time, it literally can be 4 to 5 minutes. If you can do more, great, okay? But 4 to 5 minutes of taking your focus on this and moving it over to one thing. So my mental resets. I like to color in a coloring book. I know that sounds childish, but it's really good for me. I also like to do connect the dots. I like to sit and have a cup of tea and read a book. I have all these different things that I like to do, but when I do them, I zoom into that. And here's the thing. And this is coming from a type A personality individual. I used to not be able to read a book unless I read the whole chapter, because then I thought, oh, God, I got to start over again. No, now I don't do that. Now I can literally read like 2 pages or maybe a page and a half, and I just mark my spot and I keep going. But because I have to take my mind and I kind of delve in there, then when I come back here, wow, oh, you know what? I found a resolve for that problem. I have more creative ideas. This doesn't seem as horrible as I thought it was a few minutes ago. All these things, it's all from a mental reset, okay? So if we can do that throughout the day, that will help you as well. And then our last piece to this puzzle is happiness. And that has to do a lot with our perspective, okay? So I know times are tough right now. Anxiety is high. Uncertainty is high. We don't want to dwell on that, but we have to. We're in the middle of it. But it's our perspective. So here's a great example. A friend calls me up the other day, and she's in a different city from her husband. And she said to me, he's got the corona. What do I do? And she's completely freaked out. And I said to her, I go, how's he doing? He's at home. Okay, great. I said, here's the thing though. Let's change our perspective. Realize that hopefully now he's immune to it. And the minute I said that to her, she kind of sat back and looked and said, you know what? You're right. And I said, okay. So now you don't have to worry about him. He's fine. He's going to be fine after this. So let's change the perspective, okay? Many times if people are going to lose their job, or maybe they just, I lost several jobs immediately from this corona thing. But again, it's about perspective. So it's how we look at it. And we can look at it saying, you know what? Those things were stressing me out anyways. Or there's something else I would prefer to do that I want to do. I'm really encouraging people, and I want to encourage you guys too. Right now, you have an amazing gift, believe it or not. And that gift is to completely redesign your day to add in healthier habits. Because we don't have that rush of the alarm and getting kids to school and doing all these things. We have a morning that we get up to that we can actually completely reformulate. So I want you to think about that. I want to leave you with that thought. I want you to leave you with the thought of changing your perspective of what's going on. Just really sit back. I know it's tough. I recognize that completely. I'm in it too. But you can change your thought process about it and maybe start looking at some other avenues that you'd prefer to do anyways, and redesign your way to implement some of these healthy habits that I've given you here. I hope that helps. Have a great day.